Hi, and welcome to your Urban Connection. Remember, this is the channel that is often imitated, but is never duplicated. Now, I want to talk to you about an ESPN sports commentator whose name you'll know immediately. His name is Stephen A. Smith. And Stephen A. Smith has stepped into a hole that he dug for himself, that he is now trying to dig out of. So let's get into this story. Stephen A. Smith was responding to a statement that was made a few weeks ago by Donald J. Trump. And Trump said that Black people were identifying with him because of his record, criminal record. Okay, him being arrested and, to use his words, persecuted as many Blacks has done. So they identified with him, they associated with him, and they were supporting him. Well, Stephen A. Smith comes along and says that President Trump, not ex-President Trump, was correct in saying that. And you know what? That was offensive and dumbfounded and inappropriate as far as most Black people, law-abiding Black people, were concerned. Now, to add injury to insults, to make matters even worse, is where Stephen A. Smith chose to make these remarks. You see, Stephen A. Smith chose to go on the Fox News Sean Hannity show to show his ignorance and his stupidity and make these dumbfounded, offensive remarks. Now, he has to know that Fox News and Sean Hannity would not have him anywhere near their studio or their television cameras unless he was willing to do what so many others before him have done. And I'm talking about those like Leo Terrell, Crawford, uh, Jesse Lee Peterson, okay, uh, and I can't Candace Owens, and other people like that who do nothing more than belittle other Black people. And that's why they have an open invitation to go on Fox News. As long as they're spewing disinformation and vulgar, offensive, anti Black messages, they're welcome. And unfortunately, Stephen A. Smith, who knows better, Stephen A. Smith has been part of the national news media for years. He knows that Fox News is nothing more than a Trump propaganda channel. He knows that they will use and abuse and then throw away any Black who's willing to spew anti-Black racism, that's what I call it, and then throw them away. Okay? So now Stephen A. Smith, he's issued an apology to the Black community. But his apology comes with conditions. And I'm going to tell you, I, for one, cannot accept his apology with conditions. And let me tell you what I mean by that. He wants you to believe that the words that came out of his mouth, that Trump was right in what he said, he wants you to believe that his words were taken out of context. Tell me how, Stephen. You were on a live show. It was not edited. You were live on Sean Hannity's show. The words came right out of your mouth. Anybody that was watching, which only a few black people do, saw you spew those offensive, dumbfounded words right out of your own mouth. How could they have been taken out of context, Stephen A. Smith? After receiving what he didn't look forward to and receiving a large or huge amount of backlash from black people and others, including some who are calling for his firing from his lucrative ESPN job, he decides to issue an apology. He wants you to believe that his words were taken out of context. No, Stephen A. Smith, if you want to have any kind of credibility, and if you want to have some accountability, issue an apology unconditional, with no conditions attached, no strings attached. Be a real man. Admit that you were dumbfounded and stupid in two ways. Number one, for making the remarks that you made, and number two, for going on Fox News' Sean Hannity's show to make those remarks. It makes you look very small, Stephen A. Smith. And I don't know about others, but I'm not willing to accept that apology as long as you have conditions attached to it. Remove the conditions. Straight up, be a man. Take responsibility for what you did and what you said. Be accountable for your words. Now, Stephen A. Smith wants us to believe that he's justified in making those comments because of newspaper headlines that he has read showing that Trump has and is gaining black support across America. Stephen A. Smith, you should be the last one to suggest that. Because Stephen A. Smith, you should be the first one to recognize that you can't believe everything you read. Because Stephen A. Smith, I've read reports in newspapers and on the internet and on TV about you having relationships with some of your co-hosts. I don't know about all of them, but I know certainly some of them were not true. And I never dealt with those. I never took it for granted that they had to be true because I saw them in print. You should know better than that. Things have been said about you many times, have been printed about you that were not true, Stephen A. Smith. You should also know that a lot of things that appear featuring Donald Trump are fake, if not paid for, such as the case with Donald Trump here about 2 weeks ago, appearing at a sheep fillet in Georgia, where he was so-called supported by black people, only to find out later that these were people that were Republicans and staunch supporters, and it was a setup meeting. It was not spontaneous. It was a setup meeting. Now, you further should know that Donald Trump has had fake photos by people that put together photos of a black group or black groups of people, and then instilled a photo of Donald J. Trump in the picture, and then purport that these people support Donald Trump. They're fake photos. And he's done it many times. He lies. Stephen A. Smith, you should know that when reports, I don't care if you read them, if you hear them, what you do. Reports showing that Donald J. Trump has 20% or 23% of Black support is false, fake, and ridiculous. And you should know that, Stephen A. Smith. You've seen this before. So don't come here looking for sympathy. You're now playing the Candace Owens playbook. Okay? She's now being rejected by the white nationalists that she was playing into and catering to. But now that she's said some of the remarks that were offensive to Jews, they've shown her the door. They've kicked her out. And now what does she do? She comes running back to the Black people that she's been displaying anti-Black sentiments and derogatory remarks about. She comes back to them now for support. No, Candace. No, Candace. You've shown your true colors, honey. We know who you are. We know what you are. And maybe, just maybe, we're beginning to find out just who Stephen A. Smith is. Maybe we've been fooled. But it looks to me like the cat may be out of the bag, okay? The genie's out of the bottle, Stephen A. Smith. And you can't put that genie back in simply by issuing an apology with conditions. No, Stephen A. Smith. You and your words were not taken out of context. You spoke those words. Now, Stephen A. Smith, in my opinion, there's only one of three reasons why you would issue those remarks from your mouth. Number one, you would do it for ratings. But those ratings, Stephen A. Smith, would have went to Fox News because you didn't make the statement on ESPN. That's where you're employed. That's where your show is at. So if you did it for ratings, you did it for ratings for Sean Hannity and Fox News. So that's number one reason. Number two reason, Stephen A. Smith, is because of the fact that you wanted to fit in to the Fox News narrative, which is to have a Black person on who will spew anti-Black sentiments. In other words, who will throw other Black people under the bus. That's number two. Now, the third reason, Stephen A. Smith, and I believe this is the reason that you did it, is because that's what you believe. That is what you believe. You are a supporter of Donald J. Trump. And I don't have any problem with that if that's what you want to do. But don't come on here lying and spreading the false information and that Donald Trump is spewing out there that has no substance to it, okay? And then come on Fox News and offending and issuing dumbfounded comments that are really ignorant on the surface to Black people by trying to fit in with Sean Hannity and that group of propagandists. Okay? If you want to be a Trump supporter, you go ahead and be one. But be honest. Don't lie. Don't hide. Don't try to play games. And then further insult our intelligence by saying your words were taken out of context. That is pure BS. And you know it, and I know it. So Stephen A. Smith, next time you decide to issue an apology for those remarks, because I hope you won't be dumb enough to make future remarks similar in vein to those, but the next time you decide to issue an apology, don't attach any conditions to it. Because if you do, as far as I'm concerned, it's going in one ear and straight out the other ear. Stephen A. Smith. Have a good evening. Thanks for watching, folks.